All right, let's now welcome political analyst Thobani Zikalala for some insight on the latest developments around the formation of the Government of National Unity. Kuzeni, great having you with us. A very good afternoon to you. Thank you so much for your time. So the EFF surprising many with this latest move. Have you seen the proposal to the ANC? What do you make of it? We know that this was not, of course, the first time that the party had been considered as partners within the GNU, and they'd initially chosen to walk away from the offer.
Good afternoon. I think the first thing would be whether or not they even walked away in the beginning. I don't think they did. I think it's a matter of conversations that were not maybe meaningful, the consultation that was not done to its meaningful end. And I think if you read their letter, they almost say the same thing they've been saying in the beginning, that the cooperation with the ANC is not problematic. In fact, they see it as a progressive step towards the fulfillment of their political program and the political program of the ANC. Their only condition, right? Their only condition is that the collaboration with the DA and the Freedom Front Plus. I mean, if you look at in terms of how they've crafted their position, they have a principled position that says there must be cooperation between them, the ANC, and other so-called progressive movements of political parties. Their condition, which must be taken to be different from the principled position, that their condition for the principled position to be able to work is that those they have deemed enemy forces who are enemies to the liberation project and liberation program of the National Democratic Revolution and the Freedom Charter must not be included in that collaboration. And of course, this is the EFF. They've got a history of changing their minds, and we should not be surprised if they now come in a very meaningful manner to express their positioning. And I think also it's a matter of trying to seize the political moment to try and to make sure that if for those in the public who seem to be opposed to the DA-ANC coalition, which includes other smaller political parties, they see them that they did try and rescue the ANC from what other people have termed the bust-up mentality of the DA of wanting to dictate terms and how things are to go. Because if you read the spirit of that letter, it says, one, we cannot collaborate, we can't include the DA, but also we are not making demands in terms of the positions that we want to occupy. We are merely saying we are coming, we want expression in government, and we also want expression in the control of parliament. I think the spirit of the letter it seems to be in good faith, but maybe because of the fact that the statement of intent has been signed with the DA, and the DA has been very clear since the beginning that it doesn't want a situation of cooperation between the ANC, the EFF, and the MK. For them, the DA, the Government of National Unity, is a victory. They have achieved their goal of keeping the ANC below majority, below 50%. They now have achieved their second political objective to stop what they call the Doomsday Coalition. And I don't think it's going to be any easy for parties like the EFF to try and enter into that space because of the fact that already there's an agreement, and it also seems that other forces which are outside of the popular mandate of the public have been privileged as the ones who can offer opinion on whether the Government of National Unity is good or bad, which will make it very difficult for parties like the EFF and the MK to enter into that space, because those forces, like your market forces and what we call, have been given such privilege to express what is good and what is bad in terms of forming government, have really expressed that the DA and MK, the EFF and the MK must not be included. So it's good from the part of the EFF to express their position and to show for the public that there's the conditions that they've set. But on one hand, it's almost maybe too little, too late, because the DA and the ANC seems to have been circling their issues, and it seems they are very intentional on making sure that the Government of National Unity is the DA, ANC, and other small political parties.
But Kuzani, bearing in mind that the ANC has always been very adamant that they still welcoming other parties to actually be part of these agreements. So talk to us about the timing of this revised offer. I know you made reference to the fact that it might necessarily be too late because, as we understand, there might already be a current agreement in place between the DA as well as, of course, the ANC. So speculatively, right? if the ANC accepts this proposal, particularly at this stage, and judging by all the latest developments that we've been privy to this week, what do you think we could possibly see as a direct result of that?
I mean, the issue here is going to be, you have an ANC that says it wants to work with everyone and everyone must agree to come and work with them. Mm-hmm. But they have parties inside that statement of intent with them who are very clear on who they don't want to work with, in particular the Democratic Alliance. You have a party that you want to invite to the government of national unity that is very clear on who it doesn't want to work with. The impasse around which partner becomes the most legitimate or the most correct and who can you sacrifice for the other is going to be problematic. It's going to be a very difficult choice. It seems that the EFF may be in a position that's almost a defeated position, in that they may not be able to enter this government of national unity going any further, not because maybe there is much resistance from them, but because already there is this idea from the ANC which doesn't want to view this as a coalition, but view it as a government of national unity, which means they want to include everyone and everyone working together. But here you've got political parties whose political program, whose political expression and political viewpoint of society is diametrically opposed. And they are very clear that they can't collaborate with each other because that will be diluting their program. So if the EFF finds itself in a very difficult position where it is trying to enter into a marriage that already exists, of a marriage of which the queen of the marriage is almost clearly expressed. If you look in terms of the impasse and how it has been expressed in society, that the impasse is always around the DA and the ANC, and that's what's stopping us from having a government. So then the DA has almost occupied a position of power in that relationship. Everything almost seems to revolve around making sure that the DA is in agreement with other proposals the ANC is making. The EFF then finds itself almost outside. I struggle to find how it gets into the government without the DA being there. That's the part of their. Remember when I spoke about the idea that the principal position is that they agree that collaboration with the ANC is good. They are conditioned that they said that the DA and the FF Plus must not be there. May be a condition that they can be able to be persuaded on. Of course, seeing that in the past they've had political collaboration with the DA, where they voted for the DA in other municipalities. So maybe if they can be persuaded in that condition to try and achieve their principal position, maybe it can work. But if they can't be persuaded, which I think they may be in a position where they issue this letter as just a matter of entering into public discourse and making sure that they delegitimize this program, but not really maybe meaningfully trying to force their way in. If that's the case, then of course the letter is almost futile, because we may have a government of national unity that exclude so-called progressive caucus and exclude so-called former liberation movement members like the EFF, MK and others.
And in closing, Kuzan, I mean, very interesting point that you make there, because that was going to be my next question. I mean, when we finally receive news of what, of course, is the outcome on the agreements around the GNU, if certain parties that you've mentioned, like that have been referred to as the black progressive parties, if they are not or should not make up the final members of the GNU, what do you possibly foresee as some of the repercussions to that?
I think for me, the African National Congress finds itself, in particular as the leader of the GNU, finds itself in a rock and a hard place. One, we've gone into partnership with the DA, which is clearly expressed that they are working towards your demise. They are clearly in opposition in terms of some of the measures that you try to put in place to redress society. Mm-hmm. Here you've got a block of political parties which agree with you in the principal position of how the measures must be put in place. The ANC might be the biggest loser at the end of it all, because the DA's political program in the minimum has been achieved. The ANC is below 40%. The ANC will not go into coalition with the ANC, with the EFF and the MK. Those two programs is what the DA has been working towards. The second part of that is the destruction of the ANC. You are going to legitimize the DA, have the DA having much more ammunition in the natural sense to be able to say, we have governed, we are the option. And you have put these black progressive parties outside of that space, unable to save you in future if you lose much more support. For me, in the final analysis, what I could say is that come 2029, the ANC will insist on having a government that almost goes against its core belief, may be the biggest loser come 2029, because the constituency upon which EFF, MK, and others speak to is the constituency that the ANC has been leading for so many years, that trust the ANC with their vote, but they trust the ANC with their vote for particular reforms and measures to be put in place to redress society. If the ANC goes into coalition with the party that opposes all of that and goes in the next 5 years and governs with them, any failures of this government of national unity goes to the ANC, to the doorstep of the ANC. But unfortunately, all successes of government of national unity will go to the DA. And then the ANC almost finds itself in a predicament where this 40% could become so much worse in 2029 if it doesn't use this opportunity has been given to renew itself, to renew its commitment to its core constituency, which is the former marginalized, former oppressed, under of South Africa.
All right, Khuzani, thank you so much for those insightful views this afternoon. That is political analyst Thobani Zikalala on the EFF's latest move to join the GNU.